That is bright. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to the very first panel of the morning. I'm Jacob from Hyperplay. We are a Web3 game store from the future. And I'm going to take you through a range of things. We want to talk about the user experience of Web3 gaming, about the platforms that are affecting that user experience, and how we improve that experience and bring millions and then billions more people into the decentralized web. So one of the biggest problems for Web3 UX, a lot of people start by thinking about the interactions that we have in Web3, but they don't think about the platforms that are imposing some of those interactions on our ecosystem. So the truth is that Apple and Steam and Google Play and all of these large Web2 monopolies are not only imposing these crazy 30% transaction fees on game developers and on developers in general, but they are also imposing user experience problems on Web3 and preventing the adoption of the decentralized web. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about those user experiences, but with Hyperplay, we decided to try to rebuild the entire game distribution stack from the ground up for censorship resistance, to empower the game developers to solve the biggest problems around the user experience and to help them build in a more Web3 native way. We found that many developers still have trouble figuring out how to build in a Web3 native way, how to build in ways that really use the value propositions of Web3. And we've tried to rebuild all of this for the purpose of really promoting great user experience in Web3. So the Hyperplay app is a Web3 game store. It's a native desktop app that provides censorship-resistant distribution to game developers. Inside of our app, you'll find our own store, which is the Hyperplay store. You'll find the Epic Game Store, which is the second largest PC gaming store, as well as GOG. So players can discover all three of these games in one app. And we plan to bring more stores into one common app to promote competition between these stores that moves the economics of gaming in favor of the game developer and away from the extractive monopolies and platforms that are harming the game developers and players alike. So another thing that we do is, Steam historically was really famous for bringing Windows games to Linux through a library called Proton. And we do that as well, but we've brought similar libraries into our application to make it possible to play Windows games on Mac. Our app is available on Windows, Mac, and Linux. And we have looked at the problem of these Web2 game stores like Steam or the Apple App Store, and looked at how they've affected the wallet interactions between the game and the player. And before Hyperplay and before what we started, the landscape looked essentially like this. There were three types of compromises that every game that was built in Web3 would fall into. So you'd have some games which were essentially, they were built as browser games. And a game developer builds a browser game because it's a place where you can build your game without fear of being deplatformed by a monopolistic bully like Steam. But it's also a place where you can easily bring the player's wallet into your game. It's easy to attract liquidity from a MetaMask wallet or another browser extension wallet. But these games have lower performance. Many players don't see these as real games. The second type of compromise we see is native games that have no transactions in them, and the user has to leave the game, go to a separate website to do all of the transactional and Web3 aspects. This creates a lot of friction for the user. It harms the protocol revenue of the game developer. The second model is, we see games that have embedded wallets within that game, so that every time a player is onboarding into a new game, that player is forced to set up a new wallet. Their liquidity is fragmented across dozens or even hundreds of wallets, and it becomes really difficult to bring the assets out of the game. And the player doesn't even know how difficult it will be to bring the assets out of the game, so the players will spend far less in these games, and the value propositions of Web3 gaming, like interoperability, carrying your reputation with you, having your assets with you, all of those are killed in this model. So we thought that if the legacy game stores are essentially deplatforming and preventing game developers from building in a Web3 native way, the next generation of app stores should embrace Web3 and not just allow it, not just tolerate it, but actually build our platforms around it. So the first thing we built was a Web3 overlay. So people know the Steam overlay. The Steam overlay brings chat windows, notifications, achievements into games. And we do that too, but we also make it possible for the player to connect their Web3 wallet to our application. You can connect MetaMask Mobile, the browser extension, or over 100 other wallets through Wallet Connect. And then carry this wallet connection through an overlay into every game you launch from within our application. We have an API that runs locally on the player's device that relays the transactions to the player's connected wallet method. We support Unity and Unreal, both through API methods, and we have SDKs. We built our own Unreal Engine SDK, and then shout out to our partners from ThirdWeb and ChainSafe Gaming, who built Unity SDKs for connecting to this. We'll also, for any browser-based game, you can play browser games in Hyperplay, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but we detect any window.ethereum calls that you're already making to MetaMask, so browser games just work out of the box. And for the player, this is what the process of connecting a wallet to a desktop application looks like. We detect all of the existing MetaMask installs on the player's device. The player connects selects the browser that they want to connect to, and then we, through our overlay, are actually streaming images of the player's wallet on top of the game. When you have a transaction request from the game, the browser extension will pop up for you to approve the transaction, which works essentially the same as when you use MetaMask in a browser, but this works in native games as well. If you wanted to use a mobile wallet instead, which is great for keeping your keys off of your device. Even with the browser extension, I should say, the keys are never shared with the game. The browser extension is not actually running in the game. It's running separately. But a mobile wallet, the player can just connect through scanning a QR code. The transactions will pop up on their mobile phone. We overlay a notification telling the player to approve the transaction on their phone. It's essentially the same UX as what you would get in Fortnite or something like that. And if the player doesn't already have a wallet, the first time they have a transaction request, Hyperplay is going to detect that there is no connected wallet. We will overlay this modal to tell the user to set up a new wallet or to connect an existing wallet. And this allows the user to delay setting up a wallet until they have their first transaction, and we help them do their onboarding within the game itself, which is a great progressive onboarding pattern to reduce the bounce rate that players are facing in the onboarding to Web3 games. We want to build the most developer-loyal game distribution platform. We never force any game developer to use this or that API. If you go to Steam or even the more friendly game stores like Epic, they are going to force developers to adopt a range of different APIs. Developers are deplatformed for not using those APIs. That's not our values. We're building a really different business model and a really different kind of platform. So we don't take in-game transaction fees from the transactions that happen in the game. 100% of that revenue goes to the game developer. Instead, we are monetizing optional features in our UI, like token swaps, on-ramping, in the future, NFT marketplaces and things like that. This is essentially the same business model that MetaMask uses. They never take fees from the dApps that you use inside of MetaMask. And we're an open source app. Some of our tech is proprietary, but we're primarily dedicated to being as open source as possible. And we do support native or browser-based games. So if you play a browser-based game in Hyperplay, the game will actually open in a full screen window as if it were a native game. And we use WebGPU to give browser games graphics card acceleration. So these browser games are actually going to perform significantly better than what you would see in the most vanilla browsers. This is the Hyperplay developer portal. So developers can log in to manage their game listings. They can create different branches for their game. Each branch can be public. It can be access code gated. It can be NFT gated. We handle the patching and the updating. our tests actually show in a lot of instances our patching algorithm can be more efficient than the Epic Game Store's patching algorithm. We've also built our own security model for how, if you're distributing software in the decentralized web, it's super important to protect users from malicious applications that could steal users' funds. So essentially each store that's in our app, because we're an aggregator of multiple stores, is making attestations about the safety of these games. Each developer is doing, for us in our store, we do diligence and identity checks on the developers. We analyze every game build that's submitted to our store, and we're doing forensic analysis on those. We built a whole protocol called HyperGuardian that handles this. This is very different from other so-called Web3 game stores in our ecosystem. Many of them allow direct publishing with no real security verifications and are actually pretty dangerous to use. So HyperGuardian is what we built internally. This is doing static analysis, dynamic analysis, looking for encrypted files, looking for time bombs, looking for anything that we can detect that is suspicious. I'm not going to reveal too much about how it works, but we're very serious about protecting the user, and we're first a security product. And then this is, so you may have noticed the title of this talk was called Let's Vampire Attack Web3. So we are launching a new questing system very soon. I'm not going to give a specific date yet, but in the very, very near future, we are bringing quests to Hyperplay. These quests can be built by a developer in our developer portal with little or no engineering effort, depending on the quest type. And the quests appear in the Hyperplay overlay and allow us to incentivize user acquisition, or the game developer to incentivize user acquisition, and to ship great questing and user experiences directly in the application. So this is the first type of quest that we're launching. This is what we call playstreak quests. So the developer logs into our developer portal, they create a quest, and so in this instance, the developer is saying the player must play 7 days in a row for a minimum of 5 minutes, and then the player can claim the quest reward. We will have other quest types, and this is one of the ones that we've been working on for a while. We call this reputational airdrops. So this allows the game developer to create conditional airdrops based on the player's historical gaming reputation. So they can target players who have played similar games in Web2. We read from the Steam API and soon other external gaming data sources like Epic Games, PlayStation, Xbox. So if I'm building Web3 Elden Ring, I can say, if a player has 15% of the achievements in Elden Ring, they can claim this airdrop to come and try my game. So this is a great way of introducing Sybil resistance to Web3 games, of targeting and rewarding real unique players based on their real unique gaming reputation and history. The deposits of rewards are completely handled within our developer portal. We handle the whole process of deploying the contracts for the game developer. We support every EVM chain for this. We do have special features on a few chains, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But we make it really easy to deploy these rewards and quest contracts. The players are going to be able to discover quests both within our app and in our store and website. The players can browse quests, play games based on where they can complete different quests. We're also going to be launching a soulbound achievement system. So this allows the player to mint their entire Web2 gaming reputation as soulbound tokens. So this is a new way to use your historical gaming reputation as Web3 reputation, to carry that with you across the decentralized web. And we're building a overlay. Well, we already have an overlay for wallets that we talked about earlier in the presentation, but that overlay is expanding, and we'll be using that overlay to display quests directly for the player in-game, so the player can complete quests directly in the game without leaving the context of the game. the the existing legacy questing systems, the problem with these is the users, they go to some separate website. It tells them to do this thing to earn the quest. Most of the people who are doing these quests, they're not even actual real players. When they go and do the quest, they're incentivized to leave the game and close the game as soon as they complete the quest, and then to bounce out of the platform. So in this model, we keep the entire questing rewards and claims and discovery within the games themselves, and it allows the player to claim the quest rewards within the game itself. So this is us. We've got over 95 games in the Hyperplay store. We're live today. Go play some games, have some fun. These are our investors on the left-hand side. I'm actually former MetaMask. I was lead of operations at MetaMask before this, and we're a deep MetaMask partner, and have a range of, are also backed by Griffin Gaming Partners and Bitcraft, the two largest Web3 gaming funds, and Square Enix. And we also, I'll also just mention, we did come out of the BitDAO and Mantle ecosystem and Game7 ecosystem, and have deep partnerships with those ecosystems. And for games that are looking for listings or looking for chains or ecosystems, we'd be happy to put you in touch with people. We launched a couple weeks ago. We launched the MetaMask Games Directory. So the MetaMask Games Directory is a directory directly within the MetaMask wallet. If you open up the portfolio, there's now a gaming tab where you can discover the games that are in Hyperplay. This increases the visibility for game developers, and it's really important because, in the past, game developers felt, if I don't comply with Steam and Apple and hack around their terrible policies and spend all my time trying to comply with these Web2 stores, then I'll have no users. I won't be able to be discovered by anyone. MetaMask has tens of millions of monthly active users. This is discovery and visibility that says that if you build in a Web3 native way, you won't be silenced and deplatformed and censored and have your business destroyed by some monopoly. You can be a part of this Web3 community, and we can build together and succeed together. So thank you all so much. I think we have about a couple minutes for maybe one question, if anyone wants to ask a question. No. Oh, he says no. All right. Yes, you.
One question I had, if I'm launching a game on the Epic Games Store, for example, because you are kind of like score aggregator as well, so could I use the Hyperplay indicator in my Epic game there and still use like the wallet features?
Yes. Yes, you can. So we have the entire library of the Epic Games Store. You can play Fortnite, you can play Valorant, you can play Elden Ring. When the player connects their Epic Games Store account, their entire library of games that they have in the Epic Games Store gets imported. Whoops, I didn't mean to hit that. It gets imported into Hyperplay. And any game from the Epic Games Store that you launch inside the Hyperplay app is going to have all of those wallet features, all that overlay, all of the questing features added to the game. If you play the game in Epic not through Hyperplay, obviously it won't have that. The Epic Games Store games, we have a feature in our developer portal which is called forwarder listings. So you can actually create a listing inside of Hyperplay that wraps your Epic Games Store listing, and then the Hyperplay app will specifically pull the game build down from Epic. There are some user experience quirks around pulling from Epic, and I do recommend most games to maintain a listing in both our store and the Epic Games Store, but we definitely support that. Yes? I think the mic isn't working. I'll repeat your question back to the... I can hear you. There you go. Yeah, we can hear you.
players, which is what we also need. So it's with quests, any other thoughts you have on how we attract the players to come and play these games, for developers, we now have more and more tools, which is amazing. How do we get players, especially those who may be skeptical about all the tech, but just want to play fun games? How do we get those to Hyperplay and other players?
Yeah, so the whole model of our platform has been built to provide distribution and visibility and discovery for game developers. That's through a range of sources, from the MetaMask Games Directory, and so that's tens of millions of crypto native people today. And actually, when I was in the MetaMask team and we were looking at the data about use cases, we saw that about half of MetaMask users had a gaming use case in their history. And so gaming had provided this huge bridge where broader audiences of people were being onboarded into the decentralized web. And the user experience was not amazing in the past, and we're working to improve that. But so we do things like that. We have a network of content creators, including both mainstream content creators that work with traditional games and mainly play traditional games, but help discovery of those games. We also are doing this questing and user acquisition features for game developers. All of this is creating a flywheel where when one game succeeds and it helps push players into this platform, then all those players onboard into the decentralized web and they discover other games. And then as more games grow, we grow the buy-in. So as a community of developers, we're creating a flywheel where we're growing Web3 gaming as a category, and we're growing the audience of these Web3 games, and it just compounds and grows this entire category, and we're seeing a lot of growth ourselves. I think I'm out of time. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate you being here.